welcome back. We're back here in the beautiful Bible is Funny studios. Brought to you by DraftKings. They're not. We're not.
We're not doing that.
No. But this is the Bible is Funny podcast studios, obviously.
We got the sheep, man.
We're going to use a sheep in a regular room in my house.
Yeah, and this was built, oddly enough, in the year 2000. No, BC. That's what I meant. Bible times. So it's Bible. We preserved it.
This is in perfect shape.
2000 BC.
That's right.
Around the era that we're reading through in Genesis.
Oh
today.
my word. Yeah. That's how dedicated we are to like realistic authenticity. The chosen wishes.
Yeah. They wish. Hey, did you know in your neighborhood there's a guy that looks like when he's outside doing yard work that he looks like he's naked all the time?
Oh.
He wears like a pair of khaki shorts.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen the guy.
About. Yeah.
He's an older guy and he just looks like the same color. So when you turn the corner, if you got kids in the car, you're like, avert your eyes. Uh-huh. And then it's just an old guy wearing khaki shorts.
Yeah, I've seen this in bathing suits too, which is real like jarring, because for a second it was a guy I saw in like kind of a khaki or flesh tone, and like you think you're looking at like a Ken doll for a second because it's just everything's flat and you're like,
shouldn't you have
hold on.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm back. But I also have a story about my neighborhood I wanted to start with today, if I may.
That's why I'm here.
So yesterday, actually, we were driving home, and there's a dog wandering around in my neighborhood, and it's a beagle. And so I'm like, well, the car in front of me like completely stops and is like, do you know whose dog this is? Like, it's like right by the street and everything. And I'm like, oh, yeah. She's like, do you live in this neighborhood? I'm like, yeah, I do. Let me see. I don't know what I'm going to do, but let me just see what I can do. I had my oldest son in the car with me, and I get out, and then I see there's one beagle on one side of the road. There's two beagles on the other side of the road. And so there's a pack of beagles at this, essentially. And the woman's like, I don't know well, you live in the neighborhood. So anyway, beep, drives away. So I'm just standing there like, okay.
What am I going to do with all these beagles?
What do we do? Beagles have a horrible bark.
Oh yeah.
Like a
it's a howl.
Right. Okay. Yes. Right.
And then there's like a yelpiness to it when they're just barking.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very like.
No offense to any beagles that are listening, but
I used to think beagles were so cute. I think all dogs are cute, but I still think they're pretty sweet. So this thing's like. Yeah. Making this sound to me, the largest one is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, oh sorry, what? And then the other two get the signal, and they start like coming at me, and I got my oldest is kind of like what's going on, Dad? And I'm like, I think you need to stay behind me right now. And then the three beagles like come together and start coming at me, and the one makes the sound again, and I'm like. This was a rescue mission, and I literally stepped at it and was like, yeah, back up, beagle. I'm not playing games with you. I will kick you right now. Gosh, if you don't chill out.
If you got killed by a pack of beagles, that'd be the most embarrassing death I could think of.
Well, there's no win, is what went through my head. Yeah. Either I'm going to get hurt and have to explain it was a pack of beagles and they bit me, and now I have to like wear a bandage. Or I'm like, yeah, I ended up lashing out at a pack of beagles.
I kicked Snoopy.
Little small dog.
In the face.
Luckily, cooler heads prevailed, and I just started to back away.
There was a Rottweiler behind you. They really took care of business.
He started to chill out, and then it turns out they lived like right here in one of the houses. And that was my beagle. That was my pack of beagles story.
I love how that could also turn to someone being like, hey, you messing with my dog? Why are you messing with my dog?
Totally. It was right outside her house.
I was trying to help. Honestly.
Right.
I had that happen with a kid in my neighborhood, and I felt real weird.
You fought this kid?
No, not the fighting part, but there was like a wandering kid, and I was like, I don't know, how long am I supposed to like keep an eye on this kid?
Yeah.
It was like a 3-year-old kid. And I was like, and then his older sister came walking, who was like 5. I'm like, how long do I do this for?
Right.
At what point is this creepy?
Sure.
But it
can turn.
Seems very negligent of me to just leave a kid out there. So I didn't. I kept an eye on the kid until Mom came out of the house like a half a block away. Yeah, it was kind of nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Don't call me a hero.
You're straight. She was probably like, thank you, sir, so much. I'm like looking at a beagle like this when the owner comes out. What are you doing? Nothing?
I was about to punch the kid too.
Rescuing your dog? Don't worry about it. That's my beagle story. Well, today, Tim, on the Bible's Funny podcast.
Great segue.
We're back into the Bible.
Beagle Bible.
The Beagle Bible. Mr. Bible Beagle had to be a kid's character in the 90s. I'm sleuthing around God's word for truth. Bible Beagle. If it's not a character already, dibs. I think Bible Beagle is going to take the world by storm. So we're back in the Bible. This is what we do here at the Bible is Funny podcast. We do something we've termed cheat day devos. Mm-hmm. We study the Bible, as in we read it, we recount it, we discuss it.
A study is a funny term.
Study is it like we spend some time there. This is not the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. And this is not the one where you're getting your like doctorate level. People really put time and energy and effort into understanding like the language that this all originated in, and they really do pour over the stuff. And
we make fun of the names because they sound funny.
It's a great like. There's your benchmarks, right? So just so we're all clear where we are.
Right. We're closer to that.
We're on that one.
Spectrum.
And there's a doctoral.
I think we've created a spectrum, honestly. There's not a whole lot.
There wasn't an option over on this side.
It was only theologically sound, important.
Right. That was a problem. That needed to be solved.
The world was asking for it. We just gave them what they wanted.
Everyone's so serious about reading this very important holy book. Oh, man.
This is more like water cooler talk.
This is what the water cooler seminary water cooler talk is what this is.
Can you believe what they did to Shechem? Shechem hardly even know her.
Don't finish it. So we're in Genesis 37. We've been working our way through Genesis for the better part of a decade. That's not real. But if we've been in Genesis
this house was built in the year 2000 BC.
Going by that scale. So we're in Genesis 37. We're going to read this. We're going to read through it. Not all of it, but we're going to give you what's the meat of Genesis 37. I'm going to be reading out of the NIV for those that are curious. And away we go.
This is more detailed than you've ever given.
Jacob, I know we've been off for a while, so I feel like resetting the table. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, on the edge of 17.
We got one sentence in, and you're singing already.
Was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. So right here, verse 2, we got Joseph. He's 17. He's on the younger end of this family. He's tending the flocks with his brothers, and his brothers are not doing the job to the best of their ability, which
maybe there's just a bad report.
And he brings their dad a bad report about him.
Like they could have been saying potty words. That's what the report could have been.
Saying body words. Oh, you're right. I said quality of the job. It could have been anything, but it was a bad. It was something.
Either
negative.
way, it was bad.
Right.
Like I'm like stitches, man. Snitches, man. Like
a little bit right from the start.
It's a bad start in my opinion. I never had a little brother growing up, but man, this doesn't bode well for the rest of the story.
Both of us are on the younger end of our families, and so yeah, we're both coming from that place to this, but it's a rough start. You get a sense like the brothers are all hanging out doing something. Does somebody have to go tell dad what? Did we lose a sheep, right? Was there like, what were the stakes at which, we had to report this happened?
The answer is never.
Moving on, verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other brothers because he had been born to him in his old age. My addition also because he kind of tells him what all the other brothers are doing all the time. That will get you some brownie points. Because he had been born to him in his old age. This is verse 3. And he made an ornate robe for him. So this is Joseph in the Technicolor dream coat, comes from this story. Joseph in the coat of many. The coat. Joseph in the coat. Joseph in the coat of many colors comes from this passage. So if you're familiar with either of those stories, this is that. So Israel loves Joseph more than his other brothers. He'd been born in his old age, and he makes a beautiful ornate robe for him.
Mm-hmm. I bet it was real pretty.
So this is my question too, right? Like, how is this his first robe he ever made? Because your first is typically not your best.
Maybe this is his first ornate robe.
Right. Is he trying with some new fabric?
Yeah, all the other ones were kind of like beige and boring.
Right.
But now
put some pizzazz.
We're getting into some dyes and
right.
glitter and bedazzling. I don't know.
There's a little bit of an energy of was that Modern Family where Cam makes like a mermaid costume for the cat or something like that. He's like this big reveal of like he's been making this ornate thing. A dad making an ornate robe is initially I'm like, do I want to receive this? I guess is my question.
Oh, right, for sure. I mean, like my dad, when I was like 11, he bought me some off-brand high tops for Christmas. Attack Force. I don't know if they're still in business, but I can promise you, I never wore that garbage in my life, and I didn't. Just never wasn't gonna.
Attack Force.
Yeah,
it was called.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, big time.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, he would give me CDs. That was one of his gift-giving love expressions. He gave me 2 CDs. Like very specifically that I remember. And this is going to sound like I'm cherry picking, but these were the CDs that he gave me. He gave me Creed, Human Clay. He was like, this is it. And he had a very funny moment with that one because he had a song, because he was like, there's a song on here that says, it's about a son, it's Arms Wide Open. It's the Creed song. A lot of Creed fans listen to the pod, I know. And it's like, talking about his son, and he goes, I hope he's not like me. I hope he understands. And he's like, it's like his joke was like, it's because I hope you get it. I hope you understand. But then what was funny about that was the lyric continued. I hope he understands that you can take this life and hold it. Like, I'm like, your whole bit fell apart because you read the rest of the lyrics. Second CD he gave me was Smash Mouth All-Star. Perfect. 2 CDs. He gave me Smash Mouth and Creed.
Wow.
Isn't that fun? Gifts from dads, man. So this leads us to verse 4. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So this is where the tension that we're kind of talking about. The brothers are like, oh, he got that. And then, but really I'm like, he made him an ornate robe. Right.
That's why I had some speculation here too, that like they probably already didn't like him.
Of course.
It didn't have anything to do with the robe.
Right.
Like, oh no, now we hate him more. Oh, now we have an excuse.
Well, it's like you're doing something, your little brother goes and tells dad.
Right.
Now dad's getting
this is not the only time this kid has snitched on you before.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a lot of stuff going in. If you've been with us listening to the pod, you know some of the family drama that goes with the different moms and the different slights that comes from. So it's a little bit of both and the first 4 verses. Joseph, you're doing some things, yeah, but then also the brothers are like, hey, you got that robe, and Joseph's got to go like, I did. And now dad's always like, hey, I saw you didn't wear the robe today. Was it dirty? I can get it cleaned. And you're like, I mean, no. Yeah.
It's fine. I think I gotta grow into it. It's a little big right now.
A little hot.
You know how I am with my robes. I like them fit nice and snug.
So how many events am I wearing my ornate robe to? Right. Like the Met galas.
I'm going to save it to the nice special
later this year. I'm just going to wear the brown robe again today. I'm just with the sheep. Not really an ornate robe kind of day.
Turns out the sheep kind of attack me when I wear the robe. And they kind of start charging me, and the rams that are out there, they're kind of strong. So I don't want to be embarrassed. Like, it's not like getting beat up by a beagle or anything, but
they use a lot of red, and there are bulls. So his brothers see this. They don't like that he gets the robe. So then this continues, this family tension in verse 5. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were all binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed to it. His brothers say to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him more. These are just all the reasons they don't like Joseph in the first couple of verses here.
Yeah, and I could even go back and say, look, the second someone says, hey, listen to this dream I had, that's enough for me to not like you. I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested. I'm not here for it. It's essentially like someone coming and asking me to help them move. And I'll
listening to their dream.
Like, hey, listen to my dream. You might as well say, can I borrow your truck and you and your like, I'll probably do it.
Right.
But I'm not going to like you the entire time or after or ever.
I find the dream telling in real life, like, I just never know where to go. I've talked to you about this. I really like talking to people, being around people, but there are certain things that I never know what to do once it's done. One of these examples, I think I've said it on the podcast, is when you're like, oh, my birthday's in January. Someone's like, when is it? And you're like, oh, it's the 23rd. And they're like, oh, mine's the 15th. There we are. We almost have the same birthday. Like, I don't know what to say afterward other than
there's not an end point. There's not a way out.
January, huh?
Oh, you're a Virgo.
Right. I don't know enough to add to that. And so this is one of those. Someone's like, I had this dream last night. You wouldn't believe this dream I had. And something happens. And I find it like our brains are crazy. It's like essentially this like RAM memory dump of like a person you saw and then a Facebook post that you heard about and then a show you watched and your brain goes, let's put this all together into a casserole and feed it to them. And then you're like, whoa, that's crazy you had that dream. Like, I don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's where it ends.
What a crazy dream. That's wild.
Congrats.
Yeah. Congrats. The only thing is, like, do you feel like any obligation, like if a person is involved in the dream or somehow, like, you need to, like, make them aware that they were in the dream?
If I'm not involved in your dream, I want nothing. I don't want to hear anything about it. Like,
oh, you don't want to hear about it? Okay.
No. If I'm in there, tell me the role that I played.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like, I want to know if I was around.
I mean, I don't really want to know, but that's the time I'll maybe listen.
Or like if something bad happens to someone in a dream of mine, I'm like, should I tell them to like watch out for?
No, you write it down.
Beagles today.
You write it down and then you give it to their mother after
the incident.
Yeah, and you go,
say I knew,
and look at the date. Several days ago.
It's a picture.
I know this.
I knew this one. Weirdly.
I didn't want to say it though. I don't want to creep you out.
Also, do you know Jim Carrey? Because I have one that involved him. I'm trying to write it down. So Joseph is sharing his dreams. His brothers, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? They're kind of speaking intent into the dream. That's another thing. I'm always like, how do you hold people accountable to what happened in the dream? They're like, oh, you're going to be our boss because of the sheaves and the wheat and stuff.
I mean, I could see Joseph maybe, like, we don't get the whole story here. We don't get the whole dialogue between him and his brothers.
Right.
So maybe he was sort of influencing, like, hey, I think this is what this means, guys.
Right.
Won't that be fun?
One way or another, it goes super well. And so in verse 9, he says, I had another dream. And he tells his brothers, listen, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were all bowing down to me. And again, I'm just like, I mean, it's a little bit of read the room, Joseph.
That's exactly right. Read the room.
Nobody wanted it the first time.
This one's on you, Joe.
You can pray about it and say, man, God, thank you for that great dream. I'm going to hold this kind of in my heart. But nobody wanted to hear the first dream. And they don't even really like necessarily need it, I would say. Like I'm going to say this probably wasn't the first dream he ever shared with them either. Oh, he's sharing all of it. Yeah. Those are the not recorded dreams of Joseph that we need to know more about.
Like audible groan that was happening as soon as, hey, brothers, gather round.
So I had a dream.
I've got a story for you.
I had a dream last night.
It was a dream.
So verse 10, he tells his father as well as his brothers, and his father rebukes him this time and tells him, what is this dream you had? Well, your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you. His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Well, you got that going for you. It's kept in the mind of the dad. So then, this is Joseph's story, very popular in Sunday schools. If you grew up in church, you're probably familiar with all this. But verse 12, his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, as you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them. Very well, he replied. So he said to him, go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me. So he sends them off from the valley of Hebron. And there's a little bit here where he's looking for him. And they tell him he was not actually where you were originally looking for. They went over somewhere else.
Well, this is funny because what I thought this part was funny because it says when he arrives at Shechem, a man found him wandering around the fields and asked him, what are you looking for? And he replied, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where their flocks? And he says, well, they've moved on from here. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. And my bigger question is, what is this random dude doing in the desert? And then it got me thinking, a little fan fiction theory going on here. What if this is one of those times where it's really like it's God,
an angel,
in the desert, an angel of the Lord, but we're not told that because it's a really boring interaction. Like it could have been anyone, but what if it is? But what if it is God?
No, I like that
because I like exploring the idea of God doing things that aren't always that miraculous. Like,
well, yeah.
Like like God can't always just be doing miracles, right? There's got to be a time where like you set it and forget it. The world is moving, everything's kind of going on just fine. I mean, like even like Jason Bourne even had to just put his feet up on the couch and watch TV every once in a while.
Sure,
can't always be doing cool stuff.
But I would suggest that's the line you're talking about. Like whenever we're like, it's a miracle. You're like, yeah, because this like hole in the ground was miraculously merged right as the baby lamb was going by, so the lamb didn't fall in the hole. That's a miracle. And you're like, sure it is. But so is a guy wandering around in the desert says, I'm looking for my brothers. Another guy with zero follow-up question. Who are you? Who are your brothers? What is it? You go, oh yeah, I know where they are. They went that way. I heard them say they were going to go that way.
Yeah.
They looked like you. They were just in less ornate robes. So I assume that's who you're talking about. Like, I think you get a little, yeah, I like that theory. That's one of your better ones.
Well, I feel like I only have good ones, but
maybe it's like a lower ranked angel too. That's like, they're like, we need a job, but it's not like a big job. We're not like guarding the Garden of Eden with a flaming sword. We got a guy wandering around down there. I'm just worried about his water supply. So if you could just sort of point him.
Really got to get him to his brother.
In a different direction.
Because this story kind of has to go viral in about 5,000 years.
Need this to go right.
We gotta sell the flame graphs.
Now he's lost.
We gotta sell the multicolored coats to the churches.
I heard them. They've moved on from here. The man answered. I heard them say, "Let's go to Dothan," which sounds like a place in Georgia.
It's in Alabama.
Okay, there we go.
That's why.
So Joseph went after his brothers. He found them in Dothan, but they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Feels like as much as I want to like show some personality stuff in Joseph earlier that could have been a little like sandpaper grinding, this feels like a pretty significant escalation.
Oh yeah, it's a big jump. Like I think a few steps were missed. Give him a wedgie, put your finger in his ear.
Some like light bullying would have probably been fine first.
Let's make fun of him. Let's call him a name.
Yeah.
Nah. Let's just kill him.
I don't think we got to go right to the death. But this is where we get to. And so verse 19 says, here comes they do call him a name. Verse 19, here comes the dreamer. Here comes that dreamer. They said to each other, come now, let's kill him. Throw him into one of these cisterns, say that a ferocious animal devoured him, and then we'll see what comes of his dreams. And I will say, here's where I can relate to this. I have a big family. I have a lot of brothers and sisters. And while we've never recommended killing somebody on the record, typically when you're all planning something, somebody does aim really high. Like, kind of like, there's like everybody's in a group and then somebody brings an idea that's like not doable. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you're like, what do you think about getting, our parents for Christmas? Like, I don't know. What if we got them like a date night? What if we rented out Disney World for the day? You're like, yeah.
That is an idea.
You've said
you've given an idea.
You've offered.
Thank you for the contribution.
But that is a little bit beyond kind of our capacity at this moment.
Maybe go run and get us some notepads. Just everybody a notepad. There's got to be like a CVS or something close. But we just all need a notepad, probably a couple pens.
Bonefish.
Yeah, just run out. We'll get you caught up when you come back.
We were thinking bonefish. So anyway, this gets escalated. Here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns, and we'll say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. So dark, so fast. You got dreams? I'll show you your dreams. Gosh, Reuben, chill out. Oh no, Reuben's a good guy. Verse 21. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, alive and well, and don't lay a hand on him. It's like his brothers are like the anti-Lassies. Whereas Lassie was always trying to get people out of the well. The brothers were...
No, I got the reference.
We're throwing him into the well.
I got it.
Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his son. So Reuben, he's got a plan. He talks his brothers out. Like, hey, we'll teach him a lesson. We'll throw him in the well. I'll get him out of the well, bring him back to dad, and we'll carry on. But when Joseph came, so verse 23. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe. So he did wear the ornate robe on the journey.
Yeah.
The ornate robe he was wearing. They took him and they threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up, saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood?" Again, it's just hard to track this level of this like pesky little brother.
All we get is a dead brother.
You guys are really, really on one. What do we get if we just kill our brother and cover up his blood? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. It's the least we could do.
We shouldn't kill him. I mean, slavery can't be that bad.
What will we get if we kill our brother? He's our brother, okay? He's our flesh and blood.
Right.
Let's just send him off to college, basically, with these Ishmaelites.
But we get a little bit of the profit.
We get a little bit of money. We don't have to hear about dreams anymore. Verse 27, his brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants come by, the brothers pull Joseph out of the cistern. They sell him. Reuben returns to the cistern in verse 30, sees Joseph not there. He tears his clothes. He goes back to his brothers and says, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" They don't seem to care. No response. Verse 31.
Well, right. So Reuben decides to be the voice of reason. Is like, don't kill him.
Right.
Just put him in a well. And then he leaves. Mm-hmm. He's the one of however many brothers he has, and he goes, "I'm gonna stand up for him." But now I gotta go take care of something else.
Right. I mean, Reuben's a little bit like the one we get stated here in the story, his intention, but he's a little bit like the one of like, you went to the party where all the drugs and the drinking were going. He's like, but I was gonna drive everybody home. Yeah. I mean, maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good either way. You're there. You're kind of, you took his robe off and threw him in a well. Like, yeah. So he says he's upset, obviously in 30. The boy isn't here. Where can I turn now? And he did tear his clothes.
That's how you know.
Also, though, may have been a low-key move.
To get a robe from his dad. Dad, mine's torn.
I guess mine could use a new robe.
I don't know. I like purple.
Verse 31, then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, we found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe. He recognized it and said, it is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him.
I want to know the forensic test that was there, like when he was like, examine it to see if it's your son's. Like, sniff it. Does it smell like him? Can you check the hair?
Right.
Like, or maybe like just does it look exactly like the coat that you made for him?
Right.
Since you made it.
Yeah.
There's not much to examine at that point.
No, there's no DNA evidence, or else they would have found out it was a goat blood on there. And the only real threat in the desert is wild beagles. It's the only real danger. He recognized it and said, it is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. I like that kind of preying on their father's like prejudice against ferocious animal. Like, to me, this gives some background into like him as a dad going, watch out, the animals out there. They're like, we know if there's an accident, he's going to blame it on the animals. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of play into it.
Yeah. And he says, surely he's been torn to pieces. Like,
yeah.
I appreciate that, but also like, man, that's pretty doomsday as well. Supposing that not only is he dead, but he's got to be in pieces. He's got to be an animal. He's got to be in pieces. I don't want this guy in my prayer chain. You know, when you're like,
right.
I'm going out of town this weekend. I'd like some traveling mercies, please. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what's the point? You're just going to crash in the plane and you're just going to explode into a billion pieces anyway. You're just going to die.
Right. Jeez, man. How you really expounded that in like the worst possible way.
Or maybe he's not. Why don't you start by looking for him?
That is something I thought was funny. That's never once came up. That he might. Maybe there's something left of him somewhere. We should look.
You have something to bury.
No. Everyone just immediately assumes. So then Jacob tears his clothes. He puts on sackcloth and he mourns. Everyone's tearing clothes, but luckily we got a tailor in the family. Puts on sackcloth and he mourns his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted.
Maybe that's where they get the phrase snitches get stitches.
Stitches
in their clothes.
For the clothes.
It's for the clothes. It's not for the other stuff.
Jacob's really distraught. He says, I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave. So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. So Joseph is off, and the brothers are back with their father. Let's go through chapter 38. Judah leaves his brothers, and he goes to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. And there Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. Oh, yeah, this is a story.
Well, don't stop before you get to the good part. Jeez.
Apologies. I didn't know if I needed to set it up at all. I was giving myself a minute to think, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, no.
He married her.
Wait, can you say it in kind of like a sultry voice?
Stop it. Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua.
Go on.
He married her and made love to her. Yeah, she became pregnant and gave birth to a son who was named
Really ruined the mood there, Aunt. Lit a candle.
It's always one of those names you're like, what do you want to name him? Bill. Oh, I already wrote.
I wrote her down.
That was I made that as a sound. Oh, well. She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death.
Yeah, so God killed is what it sounds like.
R.I.P.
Like God killed Wait, God killed or God killed... Yeah. All right. You couldn't tell who God killed.
God killed her. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked, so the Lord put him to death. Verse 8, then Judah said to Onan, sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the child would not be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. This would come to be called the pull-out method.
Don't.
That is just what it is. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, live as a widow in your father's household till my son Shelah grows up, for he thought he may die too, just like his brothers.
So God kills for having a bad kid, and then God kills Onan for not sleeping with his sister-in-law. Is that what I get?
I thought dies.
We're done. Everybody getting killed.
Does wicked, and so the Lord puts him to death. That's in verse 7.
Yeah, but then Onan, God kills Onan for not sleeping with his sister.
So the Lord yes.
Right?
Essentially.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that?
This kind of evil
seems kind of
plot Onan has or whatever. Yes. Yeah, Onan gets killed, gets killed. And then right. And it's all this is such an odd chapter in the middle of all this. It's hard to really track and keep up with, because then it seems to me like Judah just like really dislikes Tamar, because he says here in 11, live as a widow until my son Shelah grows up. And then it says, for he thought he may die too, just like his brothers. So he's like, looks at this woman, says, I'm basically buying time, kind of thinking that son might also die and you won't get another husband. Like, it's heavy. This is a little.
That's why I wanted you to read it in that sultry voice.
So Tamar goes to live in her father's household. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah had recovered from his grief, he went up to Timnah to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hira, the Adulamite, went with him. I like this as just an example of a bros trip. You know what I mean? To the men who were, because it says Judah recovers from his grief. He went through a tough time. He goes to Timnah, and his friend Hira, he went with him. Just bros, man.
Yeah.
Bro's gonna bro. When Tamar was told, your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that, though Shelah had not grown up, though Shelah had now grown up, apologies.
Those are the words.
She had not been given to him as his wife. And this was all like part of their kind of tradition to keep these families, people looked after and things, was to pass on. It sounds real strange, and I'm sure it was not super pleasant for everybody involved, but that was their plan at the time. So when Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face.
Evidently, like, only her face. That's what I would have, if I just saw somebody with a covered face, I wouldn't jump to that conclusion.
Well, apparently Judah does. Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, come now, let me sleep with you. And what will you give me to sleep with you? She asked. I'll send you a young goat from my flock, he said. Will you give me something as a pledge until I send it? She asked. He said, what pledge shall I give you? Your steel and cord and the staff in your hand, she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. This whole interaction is one, first of all, I've talked with friends and things. You talk about your kids in the Bible, and some people are like, where do you start? And they're like, you start at the beginning of Genesis. I'm like, 38 chapters in, you're into some stuff. As long as we're all good with that, like, it's a lot to process here, Genesis 38. But I
like the line that it sort of sounds like, and I know this because we're friends and we hang out and we each hear the sort of sexual innuendos that we say to our wives. So when he says, or what does she say? And what will you give me to sleep with you? He goes, I'll send you a goat from my flock. I'll send you a goat from my flock. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, that sounds like something you and I would say to our wives, and then they would go, oh my God, what is wrong with you?
Right.
What is wrong with you?
Right. I think that whole interaction sounds to me, and I'm presuming some on Judah here, like two people that don't really know what they're doing or talking about. When you're like, I think that there is a prostitute and I want to like engage in this exchange. I don't think either party really knows how they're supposed to do it. So it ends up with some sort of IOU system for one goat, which is like, you got any to start there as an offer.
Yeah. No,
what do you give me for this?
Right.
I gotta go back home. I
also don't know that, again, I don't work in this industry, but I know that in the prostitution area, you work on like credit.
That's what I'm saying.
So he's kind of like, you got to have the cash now.
Right.
Let me see it.
I would, but what? This is a story of two people who I don't think know, and I don't know. And now we're all talking about it. 18. He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" So he talks about the pledge. After,
what does he do when he runs home? He's like, he just goes and grabs the goat, too, and just grabs the goat and runs out of the house. Is someone like, hey, what do you do? Why are you just grabbing the one goat? Don't worry about it. I gotta pay somebody back for something. I'll be right back. Actually, give me 2 goats.
Yeah, a lot of questions about the whole exchange, but it happens. It goes down. After she left, she took off her veil and she put on her widow's clothes again. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend, bro stuff. Yeah, there's your picture. He's got to send his buddy back. So it's like his buddy's like, yeah, I'll go on that trip with you. I know you've been through a hard time. Now he's like, hey, could you run this back? And he just sent you back with a goat.
Okay, but what do I put it on the ledger for the reason why? No, there's nothing to just put miscellaneous. Just miscellaneous fun travel expenses.
Right.
Meals and entertainment. Yeah.
No.
Goat feels like meals and entertainment.
Yeah. So he sends the goat by his friend, the Adulamite, in order to get his pledge back from the woman, but he did not find her. He asked the men who lived there, "Where's the shrine prostitute who was beside the road at Enaim?" There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here, they said. That's also a very funny little interaction. So you have a person there holding a goat or as a goat by a leash. Approaches.
I imagine they got a rope.
Approaches 2 men to say, "I'm looking for a prostitute." Initially,
I got this goat.
This guy, I don't know what we're doing here. Then the men have the unfortunate task to go, "There isn't one here."
And he goes, "What?"
Right. So presumably,
the heck did I sleep
they're
with?
gonna watch. But mind you, the person they're talking to has not engaged in anything. So
I wonder if that's another one of those. Like, this is the men that were there. They were all the angel of the Lord. Also, there's no prostitutes here.
These had a much less fun job. There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here. So Judah says, sorry. This is what the men said. There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here. Then verse 22. So he went back to Judah and said, "I didn't find her. Besides, the men who live there said there hasn't been any shrine prostitute there." And now it hits Judah of like, well. So Judah says, "Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you didn't find her." Love in verse 23, keyword. Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughingstock. Hey, bro, like, I went on the trip. I did my bro due diligence.
Uh-huh.
How am I going to be a laughingstock in all this? I didn't do any of this. I didn't give my stuff to some random person, negotiate goat currency. You did. Mm-hmm. What is this? We will become a laughingstock. Verse 24, about 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she's now pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out, have her burned to death."
Again, the escalation here.
Pretty big jump.
Big jump.
Pretty big jump. Pretty obvious, like, difficult to get around hypocrisy of like, you just partook. And 3 months later, this is your response. As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. This is pretty dope. This is a pretty dope end to this. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these," she said. And she added, "See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are."
Got him!
It's pretty great. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I was a prostitute, actually. And this guy was my customer. Do you happen to know who this guy is? Do you know? He owned this stuff? Do you know by any chance?
Just a question.
Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah." And he did not sleep with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, they were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand, so the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist, said, "This one came out first." I think that's a great, it's a wise practice. Mm-hmm. There's an arm, tie it up, got that one.
Yeah, it's easier than a tattoo, I think.
I wonder if this is where we get the hospital bands. This is like the initial. But here's the twist. He draws back his hand, and his brother comes out, and she said, "So this is how you've broken out." And he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and he was named Zerah. So this is interesting because this came into play recently at the Olympics, the 100-meter dash. Which part of you has to cross the finish line first to say who's the winner? You know what I'm saying? He's got a hand out. Is that the firstborn?
No.
Or has he got to be the chest, like in the 100-meter?
Yeah, I thought it was the head all along. Turns out it's the upper torso. Oh, it was the tip of the head.
For over the 100-meter?
Yeah.
That you're talking about babies.
Well, yeah, I mean, the head does have to come out.
I mean... Okay.
But like, who got in the pool?
Okay, back up.
Who got in the pool first? The person who put their toes in, or the person who just jumped all the way in?
Right. I thought, let's go to the 100-meter. I thought it was anything that crossed. I thought if you could get whatever you could get across the finish line.
Until when? When did you stop thinking that?
This Olympics.
So like, you were an adult when you didn't.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I was like, if any of you can.
It didn't register to you that like people wouldn't dive out.
But because I always wondered if that would actually be faster.
Just put your hand out?
Yeah, well, I guess the jutting out that they do with their nose would have.
Yeah, you didn't.
I thought somebody smarter than me had done the math and they realized that was keeping your momentum and your like velocity in check was faster. So I learned something this here Olympics.
Anthony learned the obvious.
Tim, what did you learn from Genesis 37 and 38?
Jeez. You know, I don't have a whole lot. I just don't. I think you just gotta be real careful who you think is a prostitute out there, and like if you don't jump to some conclusions and assumptions.
Yeah,
you really don't. Yeah, don't do that. Maybe just live under the assumption that no one is a prostitute. That's the way. Start there.
That's the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think what I learned is that some levels of bullying can be therapeutic. And actually beneficial to all parties, you know?
Yeah.
If you can if your choice is to like continue to boil until you explode or, you know,
or kill them.
Call somebody names. This is what you're going to boil over and like do something really drastic. Or if you like really give someone a piece of your mind, you know, maybe just do that.
Okay. So Anthony's endorsing some level of bullying.
Like lower, not harmful levels.
Yeah. Get used to the bullying kind of stuff.
Because they're going to be thankful you didn't do something more crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to feel better about it is your brother after all.
And you're going to get your point across. Like, bully a little bit so they learn not to do that thing anymore. Don't tell me your dreams or I'm going to keep calling you names.
Yeah, right. Like if every morning they woke up and they made a good family joke about coming up with an insane dream. And it's like, is it technically bullying? Like, probably.
Yeah. But
it's going to teach a lesson. It's going to...
You heard it here, folks.
Do some collective nice family bullying instead of throwing them in a well. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't let it get to there.
You only bully the ones you love.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's right. You do much more not kind things to others. Mm-hmm. It's not a good thing to learn. Either of them, really. Well, I guess Tim's is functional. Hey, guys. That's Genesis 37 and 38. Thanks so much for coming along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. I hope you learned a lot.
I know we did. See you next time. Bye-bye.